Hello everybody, welcome back to 89 Games, continuing our Gloomhaven guide series with this time the Sun class. So right away, spoiler warnings, if you haven't played through yet and you want to be surprised, now is your chance to click away. But for everyone else, here we go. Alright, so the Sunkeeper. The Sunkeeper is another one of those characters that can break the game. And we're going to talk about that when we get into the cards here, but she can shield so much that she barely ever takes damage, and she can dish out a high amount of damage, or she can be a great support character slash tank. So we're going to talk about that as we go. So let's go ahead and jump into the cards and just go ahead and get right in here and get started. So first up, we're going to have Purifying Aura. Now, Purifying Aura, on the next 5 melee attacks targeting you, you gain Retaliate 2. So 5 turns you retaliate. This does burn when it's done, but that retaliate 2, that's pretty good, and it only activates when they do attack you with a melee attack, which means you'll get the 10 damage out of this over the course of its life. So I do like this one. I usually keep this one in for a while. Plus the initiative 21 is pretty decent, and you will notice that initiatives for the Sunkeeper are typically pretty high, so you won't be going early most of the time. You have a few in the 20s, and everything else, at least starting out, is really high. So it can be a little harder to position yourself where you need to be as a tank when other characters are wanting to go really early. It can be hard to get out front and draw damage like you should, so you'll have to have good communication with your team to make sure that you're still drawing the majority of the aggro as the team's tank. So the bottom of this one, though, is strengthen all of adjacent allies, and then if you have light, you can get all allies within range 2 instead. So strengthening allies, of course, that's really great. That's going to make them all get better modifiers and do more damage. So the bottom of this one's pretty good too as a support card. And then moving on to Cautious Advance, I like this one for the shield on the top, shield oneself, get XP, and then the bottom is a move 3. So this shield 1 is really good, and we'll see later there's a way to combo this with another shield so you can move up, have a ton of shield, and just draw damage away from your team. Plus you get XP, and you get a lot of XP as a Sunkeeper too, so you can level up pretty quickly, so these cards are also nice for that reason as well. And then we have Initiative 23, so hopefully we can use this one a little bit earlier to make sure that we're drawing the aggro with that shield active. And then moving on to Brilliant Prayer here. Brilliant Prayer, one adjacent ally may recover one of their burned cards, and of course this burns for you, and you can't recover it in any way. You gain 2 XP, and then the bottom also a heal 5, range 3. It activates light and gives us 2 XP, but also burns, goes away forever. I don't like this card unless if you're playing the support role, it might make sense for this one. Giving an ally their burned card back and burning one of yours is just a trade-off. Like if they have a card that's really good as a burn that they can use to do a bunch of damage, then it makes sense, yeah, to give them that card back. But most of the time, this really isn't that great. And then the bottom, I mean, heal 5 is good with range 3, but you burn to use it. So if you're playing the support role, you might want to hang on to this one, but we're going to go for, in this video, and the way I play the Sunkeeper, is a damage tank rather than a support tank. But there is a viable way and option to play the Sunkeeper as a support character, as a support tank, where you can still get up front, take all the damage for everybody, but then dish out a bunch of support and heals with things like strengthens and the heals here, and giving people cards back and other things like that. But with that said, let's go ahead and move into Empowering Command, the next card. This one, the top of it, one adjacent ally can recover up to 2 of their discarded cards. If you have light, you can consume it to give them 3 cards instead and get an XP. This one I like a lot better than Brilliant Prayer because this one you don't burn to use it, first off. And second off, I mean, you're giving people their turns back with this one because they're going to get 2 discard cards back. That's an entire turn that they get back. If you give them 3 cards, depending on if they're on an odd or even number of cards right now, you could be giving them 2 turns back. So this one's really good for keeping an ally, especially someone like the Scoundrel or anyone else who has a lower card, lower hand size. This is really good for keeping them in. So a great support card again. And then the bottom of this one adjacent ally may perform attack 4. So that's really good if you're already up where you can attack, and then you can give your ally an attack. You can really focus damage, focus fire on an enemy, and take them out. So again, this is another good support card. And then we'll move on to Protective Blessing, another support card. You're seeing the theme here, but there are attack cards, they're coming. So the top of this one is Bless and Strengthen, affect an ally within range 3. So this is really strong because we're giving an ally Strengthen, so they're going to get better modifiers, plus we're throwing a Bless in there. Higher chance of pulling a ×2 when they hit something. So this is really good, especially for those characters that have those high damage attacks or have a lot of multi-attacks. They're going to get a lot of use out of this Strengthen and the Bless. And then the bottom is an aura where you and all adjacent allies suffer no damage for the round. And it activates light, gives you 2 XP, and it burns. This sounds really good, but again, with an aura and everyone happen to be adjacent to you, the cases in which this would make sense to like turtle up for 1 turn, I just don't see us getting much use out of it. And it burns too, so I don't really like the bottom of that one. The top's not bad though, so if you're going to hang on to it, it would be for the top, I would think, more so than the bottom. And then moving on to Dazzling Charge, this one is a heal 3, range 3, activates light. So this is good for a few reasons. It's a good, consistent heal 3. It's got range with it, so we can heal ourselves, we can heal allies. It activates light. And you'll see as a Sunkeeper, we really need light to be active as often as possible. So I like this one because we can help an ally and help ourselves because we activate that light that we can use on the next turn. And the bottom of this one is a move 5. You stun one adjacent enemy. It activates light as well. You gain XP, but it does burn. So I don't like this one for the bottom so much. I mean, stunning's good, sure, in the move 5, but we really need to be activating light as much as we can, so it's better to have this card for the top where we can reuse it later on. Or maybe get it back with a stamina potion, use it 2 turns in a row, have light 2 turns in a row, so forth and so on. And then moving on then to Tactical Order, this one allows an ally within range 3 to perform move 4, or the bottom, you move 4. So this one's good for mobility. I would keep it for that reason in the beginning, because you will see that we're going to have some mobility issues with the Sunkeeper. And then the Initiative 29, it's not terrible, but it's getting there. It's getting kind of less usable. A lot of enemies can beat that. But giving an ally that move 4 too, it is useful in some cases, depending on the situation. But I would probably hang on to it for the bottom. And then the next one is Holy Strike. This is a great one to hang on to for as long as you can, because the top is attack 2 and stun. So stunning, as we've talked about before, is so powerful. It removes an enemy from the equation for a whole turn where they can't attack. And plus this one does give you an attack 2, which is a decent. It's the same as the basic attack. So you're actually doing a little bit of damage with it, and you're stunning. And then the bottom of this one is attack 5, range 3, activates light, 2 XP, but it burns. So not so much for the bottom. You know, the bottom might have a situation where, okay, it makes sense to do this, but I would definitely try not to use the bottom of it until maybe towards the end of a scenario. Hang on to it for the top, and that's stun. And then the next one is Hammer Blow. Now we're getting into where we'll talk about the strategy that I would use with the Sunkeeper and that I have used with the Sunkeeper. So Hammer Blow is attack 4, but if you have light, you can consume it to add another attack and gain advantage. So it would be attack 5, advantage, you get an experience point. Attack 5 advantage is huge. Especially once your modifier deck has been, buffed up a little bit, we're talking attack 6, 7, maybe 8 that we're going to get out of this. Really powerful for one-on-one damage. The Sunkeeper is not great at fighting big groups of enemies. So you'll see in those maps where maybe there's a lot of snakes or there's a lot of vermlings and stuff like that, she's not as good in those maps just because she can't take things out quickly because she can only focus on one enemy at a time. She'll still be great for shielding, but swarms of enemies are kind of her weakness as far as being able to do damage to them. However, in most maps when you're fighting, bigger enemies and stuff like that, the one-on-one, Sunkeeper's like, I got this guy. Go up there and she can handle him. So the bottom of this one is a move 4, which again, good for our mobility. And then we're going to see our next card, Defensive Stance, is the exact same thing on top. It's another attack 4, 5 with advantage if we have light. So this is where you'd want to be able to activate light a couple turns in a row, use this a couple turns in a row, and no enemy is going to be able to withstand 2 attack 5s with advantage in a row. But the bottom of Defensive Stance is integral to our defense and our tanking for the Sunkeeper. So the bottom is a shield 1 for yourself, deduct 1 move from all of your moves, but this is an active card, so it's going to stay active the entire scenario once we use it. Shield 1 permanently for the entire scenario. That is super powerful, and it can be upgraded. There is a pip there, and it can be upgraded to be Shield 2. Shield 2 permanently for an entire round, plus other ways to get shields. There's other characters that can give us permanent shields that we'll talk about later on in the series. And you could potentially be walking around a map with Shield 4 permanently with a Sunkeeper. Nothing will hurt you if you have Shield 4. It takes a lot of damage to get past that. So this is integral to our strategy. So we might want, like the first round before our first rest, we might use the tops of both of these, but by after our first rest, we want to be activating defensive stance to get that shield and take damage for our allies. So then moving on to our last level 1 card here is Lay on Hands. Heal all damage on one adjacent ally. We suffer 3 damage, but then we activate Light, gain 2 XP, and the card burns. So, I mean, it's good if you have an ally that really is like, oh crap, like I messed up and I'm about to die, but it's really not it's not a situation you want to find yourself in where this card would actually be useful. So I don't like it because if you're playing cautiously, if you're playing well, this card really doesn't make sense. The bottom's a loot 1 on the bottom, so again, it's really not that great. So the 2 cards that we're going to take out at level 1 are Lay on Hands and Brilliant Prayer. We take these 2 out, and we're going to throw in a couple X cards, which we'll talk about right now. So the first one we'll pick up will be Daybreak, and Daybreak is attack 3, Muddle. You gain +1 attack and activate Light if you consume Darkness, and then you get an XP. So this one sometimes is good, sometimes not as good. I mean, it's attack 3 Muddle either way, which is good, but the consuming the dark to make the light is situational. It depends. On some maps, there'll be enemies that are activating dark quite a bit, and you can take that away from them to create light for yourself, which is really powerful. But regardless, early on in the game at least, the attack 3 Muddle is really nice to have, even if we don't get the darkness to consume and make light out of. And then the bottom is a move 2, Bless one adjacent ally. Again, really good because we can move, and then we can bless them, give them a ×2 card. That's really great. And then moving on to the next one is Beacon of Light, and that's the other card that we would take instead of the level 1 card. So Beacon of Light, heal 1, affects self and all allies within range 4. That's really powerful because it's a good way to get rid of poison or wound on your entire team, because heal 1, you would take care of all of that. As far as actual healing, heal 1's really not that great, so it's not good for that, but it is good for getting rid of those status effects. However, the bottom of this card is why I hang on to it. At the end of the next 5 turns, when light is not strong, infuse light. And so remember, this also only happens when light isn't strong. So I believe this stays active. You don't use a charge of this card unless light isn't active. So this is a great way to keep light active for as long as possible when you're playing as the Sunkeeper, and allow you to use things like the top of Hammer Blow and Defensive Stance and other cards that we'll see later on. This really makes the Sunkeeper so much more powerful when light is active. So I like this one. I use the bottom of this one quite a bit, every scenario, to get that light active and at least get one full cycle of cards done where I can use these advantage attacks. So, and then the last one on the X cards here is Glorious Bolt. This is the support card. It's a heal 5, range 3. If you have light, you can target 2 allies with it. So healing 2 allies for 5, it does burn. But, healing 2 allies for 5, that's pretty good. That's pretty powerful. And then the bottom, attack 2, range 3, Muddle. Yeah, decent little range attack. It's a bottom attack, so that's good. But the cards I would take out of the X cards, definitely Daybreak. And then Beacon of Light for sure. Beacon of Light is critical to the strategy that I'm going to use for the Sunkeeper. So that covers level 1. Let's go ahead and start moving into the leveled cards, and we'll see how powerful the Sunkeeper quickly becomes. So Practical Plans or Unwavering Mandate. Practical Plans is, there's not much to be said about this card. It's good. Attack 5 on top, move 5 on bottom. And then the other one is Unwavering Mandate. Top, one adjacent ally may immediately perform an extra turn by playing 2 cards from their hand, gain XP, and then burns the card. And then the bottom is a good heal. That's a heal 3, range 2. But if you have light, you can target 2 allies with it. So here we have, and you'll see this theme throughout all of the cards for the Sunkeeper. There's typically one that's more of an attack-oriented card and one that's more of a support-oriented card, which is why I say there's 2 viable builds for the Sunkeeper, depending on your party composition and how you like to play. So I would go with the Practical Plans here, because this is definitely the attack card. Attack 5, move 5, that's super strong, plus we need the mobility, because remember, if we're using Defensive Stance bottom, it's deducting 1 from all of our moves, which means our base move now is only 1. A move 4 is a move 3, a move 3 is a move 2. So this move 5 still keeps us with a move 4, even if Defensive Stance is active, so it really helps with our mobility. Unwavering Mandate, giving an adjacent ally an extra turn, that could be really powerful depending on the ally and what they have planned. The only problem is that we're also taking a turn away from them because they're using 2 turns in 1 round. So they'll last less rounds, but they'll do more damage and do more stuff in that one round that they're doing this. So it's a trade-off. It really depends on what your ally has planned. The bottom of this one, though, again, as a support healer tank, the bottom is really good because you could use your light to heal 2 allies for 3, which is really, really powerful. But we're going the attack route, so we're going to take practical plans here. And then tactical order is what we'll take out. And that was the one where we'd give an ally a move 4, and we had to move 4. So we're definitely upgrading our movement by taking practical plans, and then we're taking away some support ability, but we're getting the attack. So then we'll go ahead and move on to level 3, and we'll talk about Burning Flash and Mobilizing Axiom. So Burning Flash is more of your support-oriented card. The top is an attack 4, where we target all adjacent enemies. We gain XP for each one targeted. It activates light, but then it burns. So this is really good if you're surrounded by enemies. You know, you're hitting 4 enemies with this, 5 enemies. I mean, powered up with a power potion or something. It's really strong. This is a good burn attack. It really is, because if you use it right and you hit a bunch of enemies with it, you could really save turns overall by burning this card. And then the bottom is a heal 3, range 3. Another great support card. If you consume any element, you can add 1 heal to the heal, so heal 4 at range 3, and then it turns that element into light. Basically, you activate light with this. So if you're playing the support role, this Burning Flash is a very strong card to take. However, the other one, Mobilizing Axiom, is the attack version, the attack card, because the top is attack 4 and it activates light. It's a very consistent way to do damage and get that light active so that we can do more damage on our next turn by using Hammer Blow or Defensive Stance's top. And then the bottom of this one allows all allies within range 5 to perform move 4, and you gain 1 XP. Now this does burn, but there are situations, there are scenarios where you have to get to an objective or you have to get to an escape area where giving all of your allies move 4 can be really powerful, can really help position you where you need to be to defend NPCs or whatever the case may be. So there are situations where the bottom of this really does come in handy, but the majority of the time we'll be using this for the top for that attack 4 and activating light. So we'll take Mobilizing Axiom and replace Protective Blessing with that. So again, we're losing some support here, but we're getting this extra attack. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to level 4. So Righteous Strength or Engulfing Radiance. Now, before I talk about those real quick, let me just mention, so Mobilizing Axiom here, we took that with the attack 4 and light, because this is going to give us a reliable way. Like, we move up, we use this on turn 1, say, and then on turn 2, now we can use Hammer Blow with advantage, attack 5 advantage. So this is kind of the combo that you would use. One turn you would use this, the next turn you'd use one of these. Or, of course, if you activated Beacon of Light, then using this should give you an extra turn of this, where this doesn't get used. So remember, we really want to keep light active as much as possible. All right, so Righteous Strength. I really like this one for the initiative. This is a nice lower initiative for us. It is Bless on the top, where you affect all adjacent allies, and you gain 1 XP. So this is a really good opening move card, because if you position yourself where the Sunkeeper's in the middle of the entire party, on turn 1 you can bless the entire party, which gives everyone an extra ×2, which can be really powerful if it comes out at the right time. And then the bottom, though, is a move 3, shield oneself. I really like the bottom on this one because we can still move and then get a shield out of it as well, and then use our top to attack. And then the other one, Engulfing Radiance, is the support card. So heal 3, affect self and all allies. Now, there's no range on this one, so this is no matter where your allies are, they get this heal 3. And then you activate light and get 2 XP. And then, of course, the card burns. So a lot of the support cards, a lot of the heal cards do burn for the Sunkeeper, but most of them are pretty powerful, and when used at the right timing, definitely could be worth the burn. The bottom of this one is an aura where all attacks targeting you or any ally within range 4 of you gain disadvantage this round. So again, as a support card, and the bottom of this one doesn't burn, and it activates light as well. So the bottom of this one, really good, because disadvantage for all the enemies really helps lower the damage that your team will take, especially if you've got all your allies within range of this. So this as an aura is actually a really good one, especially because, you know, it has that range 4 to it. However, if we're playing the attack role, the damage tank role, I like to take Righteous Strength here. And then we'll take out Empowering Command to put that one in. Now, what I like a little combo here with Cautious Advance and Righteous Strength. So if you think about this real quick, if we have Defensive Stance on, And say we've got it upgraded at this point. So we've got Shield 2 permanently for the scenario. And then we use the bottom of Righteous Strength to move up and give us one more shield. And then we have Cautious Advance where we use Shield 1 again. That's Shield 4. We just moved up with Shield 4. Make sure everything hits us and hardly anything's going to do any damage to us. The rest of our team has free reign to do whatever they want because they don't have to worry about taking hits. That is a really, really powerful move if you just think about how much shield that is. And of course, you could use it on different turns to spread that out too. Shield 3 on 2 turns. And then you got to think about items. You're going to have armor. You're going to have shields. Crazy defensive power with the Sunkeeper. Crazy defensive power. All right, so let's move on to level 5, where we're going to talk about the Path of Glory or the Scales of Justice. So, Path of Glory is attack 5, and then if we have light, we consume it to add +1 to our attack power and gain advantage. So this is an upgraded version of the top of Hammer Blow and Defensive Stance. Slightly upgraded with 1 extra attack power. And then the bottom is a move 5. You bless all allies move through, but it burns, gives you an XP. I like Path of Glory because I use it for the top. We get another 3rd attack with advantage. Scales of Justice is definitely more of the support role card, but there is an interesting strategy you could do with this one too, and we'll talk about that real quick. So, Scales of Justice, retaliate 2 on yourself. You deduct 1 attack from all of your attacks, and then this is an active card for the entire scenario. Once you use it, you get 2 XP. So, retaliate 2 constantly, and then have Defensive Stance active. And if you've had this upgraded, it's Shield 2. And of course, Scales of Justice, I should mention, can be upgraded as well, so this could be Retaliate 3. So think about having Shield 2 and Retaliate 3. You're passively doing damage while taking minimal damage from enemies. So you can walk around, support your team, never attack, and still do a ton of damage over the course of the scenario, if you have these 2 guards combined at the same time. So there is a viable strategy for the support role where you're still doing good damage because things are just dying on you when they attack you. And then the bottom of Scales of Justice here is a move 2. If you have light, it makes it move 4. You get an XP, and then you stun an adjacent enemy. So that's a really good move and stun, especially if you have light. But I really like the idea of this retaliate. So there's definitely a build to be found here where you can be shielded up and just do damage through retaliate passively. But for our build, we're going to take Path of Glory for the actual active attack here. And then we're going to end up taking Daybreak out to put that one in. So we talked about this. Consuming Dark is situational, and that's why I would replace this with Path of Glory, because between having Mobilizing Axiom and, of course, Beacon of Light, at least for our entire first cycle before our first rest, we're definitely going to get Hammer Blow, Defensive Stance, and Path of Glory off. So that's 3 attacks with advantage. That's going to be a ton of damage over the course of 3 different turns. So then we'll move on now to level 6, where we find Supportive Chant or Illuminate the Target. So again, Supportive Chant, here's our support card. All allies add +1 attack to all their attacks for the round. You gain 1 XP. So that's really good because, that's like an attack 3 from you, because it's giving everyone else a +1 attack. And then the bottom, all allies add +2 move to all of their moves this round. So again, really good for helping your team have mobility and get where they need to be. Plus the 11 initiative is, there might be a 9 later, but it's one of the lowest for sure. So if you want to go early, it's a good card for that. But it is definitely the supportive card here. The other one, Illuminate the Target, attack 5, strengthen, affect all adjacent allies, gain 1 XP. And then the bottom, and 1 adjacent ally may perform attack 6. So the top of this one, another attack 5, another really strong single target attack. And then if we have allies next to us, they would get strengthened. So we can buff allies and do damage with this card. I really like this one. This is definitely the attack version. So we're going to take that one. And then Dazzling Charge will come out. So we're going to lose our heal card, which if you have a healer in the party, this doesn't even matter. You could have taken this out a lot earlier. The only reason to really hang on to it is because it does activate light. It gives us another way to make sure we have light to use these, especially once Beacon of Light runs out. So for that purpose, you might want to keep that one in if you find yourself not having light when you need it. But for now, we're going to go ahead and take it out. We'll throw in Illuminate the Target. And let's go ahead and move on to level 7, where we will find Weapon of Purity or Bright Aegis. Weapon of Purity is a great card for the Sunkeeper During any of your attack actions, you may consume light to add +2 attack, gain advantage, and 1 XP. This is another active card, so you can have this on the entire scenario, and this kind of overrides the top of like Hammer Blow because we'd consume the light to do the Weapon of Purity, not Hammer Blow. But instead of Hammer Blow being attack 5 advantage, it would be attack 6 advantage. So this is still better, plus this applies to all of our attack actions. If we have light, we can consume it and make Illuminate the Target be attack 7 with advantage if we have light to consume through Weapon of Purity. This means that, with Beacon of Light active and Weapon of Purity, we've got our next 5 attacks essentially +2 with advantage. It's really powerful for doing that single target damage I talked about the Sunkeeper being really good with. And then the bottom is a move 3, attack 3, which is a nice little mobility with an attack on the same side of a card, so that's really good too if you don't want to burn this card first thing. But I would definitely recommend you'd probably want to use this with Beacon of Light active just to get the most out of it. Even though it is 2 burns, which we didn't really talk about this before, but we do have 11 cards in our hand as a Sunkeeper. So burning 2, 3, 4 cards, really not that big a deal since we have such a big hand. Then the other card is the support card here, where we shield 2 self, retaliate 1 self for the round. It activates light. And then the bottom, 1 adjacent ally may recover 1 of their burned cards, or if you have light, you consume it to get 2 of their burned cards back instead, and then activates 2 XP. So again, trading your burn for their burns, depending on who we're talking about, what character we're talking about, it might be worth it. However, the top of this one, the shield 2 and retaliate, again, we talked about that passive shield and retaliate roll. So if you activate this card, along with having other shields and retaliates active, I mean, we're talking about maybe shield 4, retaliate 4 for a round. That's really, really powerful if you can get all of the enemies, the melee enemies, to focus on you and attack you. It's a lot of damage with you taking hardly any, if any, damage because of how much shield you have. So good support card here, but I'm going to go with the damage card with Weapon of Purity. And then we're going to take out Cautious Advance at this point and throw in Weapon of Purity. So moving on then to level 8, we're going to find Cleansing Force and Inspiring Sanctity. So Cleansing Force is more of the attack card here. It's an attack 6, stun and wound, which that's really good. It gains 2 XP, but it's a burn. That's kind of a downside of that one, especially since we're burning quite a bit for our active cards. So it makes it a little harder to burn for just a single attack. And then the bottom, though, the bottom is why we would take this card, because it's a move 4 and activates light. If you look at the cards that we have at this point, we do not have a lot of movement, and we're reduced by 1 because we're probably using defensive stance. So we don't have a lot of movement as the Sunkeeper. So we want something that's going to activate light for us too, because since we took Dazzling Charge out, we're short a light activation. So Cleansing Force is going to help us with our movement and activating light. However, there is Inspiring Sanctity here, which is, I would consider, more of the support card, although the top is definitely an attack thing. So 1 adjacent ally may perform attack 8. If you consume light, they kill it instead. Just outright kill it. Now, as I've said in the past, I really do like these cards that you can just take out an elite, no problem. However, this one's a little harder to use because you have to have an ally adjacent to you that can use it, and you have to have light. So there's a little bit of a caveat to using this one. It makes it harder to use than some of the other characters' cards that do the same thing. And then, of course, it burns. You gain 2 XP. The bottom allows all allies within range 3 to perform attack 4, and they gain you gain 1 XP for each attack performed. So this is really good for, I mean, you think about, if you have a full team of 3, this is more powerful because that's, 12 attack going out. It burns as well, though. So both of these kind of lean into the attack. So this might be a turn where maybe if you're playing the support role, you might want to go back and take a second support card or something that you didn't grab before. But for our build, we're going to take Cleansing Force, mostly for that bottom, because a move 4 and activate light's really powerful for our Sunkeeper. And then we're going to have to take out Purifying Aura at this point. So we'll lose that Retaliate that we've probably been using, but again, since we're burning other cards with Beacon of Light and Weapon of Purity, we probably aren't using this as much just to maintain our amount of turns that we can have. So we'll throw a Cleansing Force in. And then finally, for level 9, we're going to find Angelic Ascension and Divine Intervention. Now, both of these are really good. They're level 9 cards. So Angelic Ascension, on your next 4 attack actions, you add +3 attack, wound, and gain advantage. So this is the ultimate attack buff. And then, of course, it burns once you've used the 4 times. And then the bottom of it, great for our mobility with a move 6 and jump. And then Divine Intervention, the top, when any ally suffers damage, you may suffer that damage instead, reduced by 1. And then you gain 2 XP. This is an active card, stays active. And the bottom, Shield 1, affect self and all allies, no matter where they are, they get 1 shield, plus you activate light, and it lasts for the round. And 9 initiative, the lowest initiative we can find as the Sunkeeper. You have 2 options here, and really one falls, I feel, more into the support role, which would be Divine Intervention, and one in the attack role. So I'm going to take Angelic Ascension because this attack 3, you think about, if you use Beacon of Light and you have light strong for your first rest cycle, and you use all your attacks that base off of that, or you have Weapon of Purity active, you're doing, attack 7s, 8s, 9s with modifiers even more with advantage. You're just killing things outright, one hit a lot of times. And then on your next rest cycle, you can burn this card, activate it, and now you don't even need light to be active, and you're adding +3 attack, wound, and advantage to everything. So you're doing a ton of single target damage with the Sunkeeper. I really like that. Plus the mobility is great too. So we take that, and at this point, we might take Holy Strike out. We'll lose the stun, but we're doing so much damage to this point that it probably doesn't really matter. Plus, we have so much shield at this point. Again, it doesn't really matter. So that's where I'm at with level 9 with the Sunkeeper. Now, again, we could have taken the shield version, and we could have had Divine Intervention where we're making everything do damage to us instead of our allies. And with enough shield, that makes your allies nearly invulnerable. So that's how the Sunkeeper, either way, as a support tank or as a damage tank, she breaks the game. She really does. And especially if you have the right teammates with you, even more so, because there's other teammates that can give you shield. So if you have other teammates giving you shield and you've got shield 3 permanently or shield 4, you're unstoppable as the Sunkeeper. She is the tank of tanks and one of my favorite characters. But let's go ahead and talk about the items now, because items also buff her up and make her even better. So first off, for our head items, we're not worried about Eagle Eye Goggles for once for a character, because she can have advantage on her own so easily. So we're not worried about that. We're going to take maybe Empowering Talisman once we get it unlocked, because we could get like a stamina potion back and get something back that activates light for us. But honestly, we probably just stick with like Iron Helmet to make sure those critical hits don't hit us and get beyond our shield. Iron Helmet's a good option. But now later in the game, when you do have it unlocked though, Protective Charm is the absolute perfect thing for the Sunkeeper, because it makes you immune to poison and wound. So if you have 2-3 permanent shield and you're immune to poison and wound, nothing's going to kill you. As a Sunkeeper, you're nearly invulnerable with this. Definitely a great item for her, making her nearly unkillable. And then as far as armor goes, obviously when it comes to armor, we're taking whatever gives us shields. So that'll start with the height armor, moving into chainmail, so forth and so on. Once you add that, plus the permanent shield that we have as the Sunkeeper, nothing's getting through. Nothing's hurting us. And then moving on to the hand items. Now, I do like the little combo of, obviously, a shield and its various upgrades, just to make us that much more unkillable. But also the Battle Axe is actually a really good one for the Sunkeeper, because it gives us that 2-space attack pattern where we can hit 2 enemies. And we use that with one of our attacks with advantage, and we can take 2 enemies out really easily with this. So you only get to use this once, but it really does power you up for that attack if you're using advantage with it on one of those cards. However, there is another option later on if you want to forego using a shield, which I don't necessarily recommend. I like having as much shield as possible as a Sunkeeper, because it's really my job is to tank and take hits for the team and mitigate damage to the team. But the Long Spear is a good one. It's 2-handed, so you wouldn't be able to use the shield, but you can use it again after a long rest, and then you could use it with your attacks with advantage. So, and still hit 2 things if they're in the straight line pattern. So that's an option too. However, I like the idea of the shield, and then once we get it, we go down here and find the Wand of Brilliance. It activates light. Again, as a Sunkeeper, activating light as much as possible is great. So if we have this, once each rest, or if we use an item to refresh this item, we can create light whenever we need it for the next turn to be able to use those abilities that need light. So this and a shield is a great combination for the Sunkeeper. And then moving on into our boots, obviously movement is a problem for the Sunkeeper if we're using our shield card, which honestly, if you're not using the permanent shield card as a Sunkeeper, I feel like you're really limiting her ability and making her a lot weaker than she should be. and she's really meant to use that card. So Boots of Striding for sure early on to give that extra movement, and anything else that boosts your movement. Even the comfortable shoes, or later on the Serene Sandals that give your base move more, could help you too with movement. With the boots, we're definitely focused on movement. We don't have jump, so that could be a problem. You might want the winged shoes, but then your mobility is going to be a problem. So I really think increasing movement is the priority for the Sunkeeper. And then finally for our bagged items, so obviously we want like a stamina potion probably, so we can get cards that activate light back without having to rest. That way we can use those higher attacks with advantage more often. So a stamina potion's really great. A healing potion could be good too if we don't have a reliable healer in the party, just because we are going to be taking damage. It'll be chip damage, but after 7, 8, 9 turns, we're going to need to heal. So it doesn't hurt to have a heal potion with you. And then also when we have it unlocked, the Moon Earring would be really good for refreshing our spent items. So we can get our armor back and make us just that much more tanky. So Moon Earring, I really like that for the Sunkeeper. And really there's a lot of options that open up with the Sunkeeper because of the way she plays and how much shield she has on what items that you could use. But with that said, that covers all of the items. So let's go ahead and move back to our perks and check those out for a second. So the Sunkeeper also has the advantage of being one of the characters that can both get rid of negative scenario effects and ignore negative item effects. Plus, this one also gives us 2+1s right off the bat as well. So definitely take those two first, so that we have these immunities down here that'll really help us too with our longevity. And then of course we take out our -1s. This is 2 each time, which reduces us all the way to only 1 -1. And then we can get rid of our -2 by adding in a 0, and then we can replace that 0 with a +2. So it's a little convoluted because it takes 2 perks to do it, but we can replace a -2 with a +2 essentially. And after that, we're into our rollers and removing zeros. So we'll go ahead and remove the zeros, get those out of there, and then we'll add in the 2+1 rollers each time to give us 4 of those. And then I would recommend going ahead and adding in the light ones because, again, light being out there as much as possible is great for us. And then stun is always a great thing to have come up. Add in the 2 shield rollers, and then finally go with the heal rollers last. And there we have all of our perks. So as you see here, we only have our miss card and a -1 as bad cards. So with advantage, which we should be attacking with more often than not with the Sunkeeper, we'll always be pulling a positive card. Almost always we're going to get at least a +1. And then maybe the rollers come out, and we end up getting 3 rollers come out. We got +3, and then a +4 from this. And then we're doing attack 12 and 13. Just ridiculous amount of single target attack damage from the Sunkeeper. So there we have our Sunkeeper in all her brightness and glory. Again, one of my favorite characters. I highly recommend, if you haven't played her, that you play her in one of your playthroughs. In either role, she's just really powerful as a tank. She's nearly unkillable once she's fully upgraded. Very powerful, very fun character to play. So with all of that said, remember to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and keep on gaming.